I'm Adrian Vale, and for 58 years I've been chasing questions across continents and through corridors of thought. Today, I want to talk about a peculiar contradiction that lives in all of us. We spend our lives avoiding pain. We take medicine for headaches. We leave relationships that hurt us. We cross the street to avoid confrontation. Pain, we're told, is the enemy of happiness. And yet, last night I paid $15 to watch a film where a family was systematically tortured for 90 minutes. Last month, millions of people wept over the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, and then immediately recommended it to their friends. We queue for horror games that make our hearts race with dread. We read novels about terminal illness, war, and heartbreak for pleasure. This is the paradox I want to explore. Why do we deliberately seek out suffering as long as it's fictional? What ancient mechanism in our souls craves tragedy? And what does this tell us about who we are? Let's begin 24 centuries ago, in ancient Athens, the theater of Dionysus. Stone seats rising in a semicircle, 5,000 people gathered to watch plays about murder, betrayal, and divine punishment. Aristotle watched these audiences weep and tremble, and he asked our question: why do we enjoy watching terrible things happen to people? His answer was catharsis, a purification, a purging. In his Poetics, Aristotle argued that tragedy allows us to experience pity and fear in a controlled environment. We feel these emotions intensely, but when the play ends, we walk away, cleansed, lighter. The poison has been drawn out. Think about it. You watch a character lose everything, their family, their honor, their life. You feel genuine grief, but underneath that grief is something else. Relief. Relief that it's not you. Relief that you can feel deeply without real consequence. Aristotle believed this wasn't escapism, it was education. Tragedy teaches us the weight of choices, the fragility of fortune, the universality of suffering. We practice feeling without bleeding. But there's something Aristotle didn't fully explore. It's not just about purging emotions. There's pleasure in the experience itself. And for that, we need to jump forward 2,000 years. 18th century Scotland. David Hume, one of history's great skeptics, sitting in his Edinburgh study, puzzling over the same question. Hume noticed something crucial. We don't just endure tragic art, we actively enjoy it. The tears we cry at sad movies aren't purely painful, they're somehow sweet. He called this the pleasure of sympathy. Here's his insight: humans are deeply social creatures. Our capacity for empathy, our ability to feel what others feel, is one of our defining characteristics. And like any capacity, it wants to be exercised. When we watch a character suffer, we're not just observing, we're connecting. Our mirror neurons fire, our hearts synchronize with their fictional pain. And there's a profound satisfaction in that connection, even when the emotion is sadness. Hume argued that the artistry of tragedy transforms raw pain into aesthetic pleasure. The eloquence of the dialogue, the beauty of the cinematography, the skill of the performance, these elements convert suffering into something we can savor. Think about Game of Thrones. Yes, the Red Wedding is brutal. Robb Stark, his pregnant wife, his mother, slaughtered while The Rains of Castamere plays. It's horrifying, but it's also masterfully crafted. The music, the slow realization, the betrayal, it's terrible and magnificent at once. We're not sadists, we're connoisseurs of feeling. We're exercising our capacity for empathy in the same way athletes exercise their muscles. But Hume was writing before neuroscience. Today we can look inside the brain and see what's actually happening when we consume fictional suffering. Modern neuroscience has given us a new vocabulary for old truths. And one word dominates: dopamine. Dopamine isn't just the pleasure chemical, that's a simplification. It's the anticipation chemical. It's released not when you get the reward, but when you're pursuing it, predicting it, preparing for it. When you play a horror game like Resident Evil or Silent Hill, your brain enters a fascinating state. You're afraid, genuinely afraid. Your amygdala is firing. Your cortisol levels rise. Your heart rate increases. But simultaneously, your prefrontal cortex knows you're safe. You're in your living room. The monsters aren't real. This creates what psychologists call safe danger. All the arousal of a threat, without actual risk. And here's where dopamine enters. Your brain is predicting, constantly, will I survive this encounter? What's around that corner? How will this story resolve? Each prediction, each moment of suspense, releases dopamine. You're not enjoying the fear itself, you're enjoying the anticipation, the uncertainty, the engagement. This is why we can't look away from tragedy. Our brains are prediction machines, and tragedy is unpredictable. When Ned Stark was executed in Game of Thrones, millions of viewers were shocked because the hero isn't supposed to die in episode 9 of season 1. The story violated our predictions, and that violation was intensely stimulating. But there's something deeper here. These aren't just neurochemical tricks. There's an evolutionary logic to our attraction to fictional suffering. Imagine our ancestors 50,000 years ago. Small tribes, constant danger, high stakes. Every decision could mean survival or death. How do you prepare for situations you haven't encountered yet? How do you learn what betrayal looks like, what grief feels like, what courage requires, without experiencing the actual cost? Stories, myths, tragedies around the fire. Fictional suffering is a flight simulator for the soul. It lets us experience scenarios, loss, betrayal, moral dilemmas, death, in a space where we can learn without dying. When you watch a character make a terrible choice and suffer the consequences, you're not just entertained, you're learning. Your brain is encoding. This is what happens when you trust the wrong person. This is what grief looks like. This is how people behave under pressure. Empathy isn't just a nice feeling, it's survival technology. The ability to model other minds, to predict behavior, to understand suffering. These are the skills that allowed humans to build complex societies. And tragedy is empathy training. Every time you cry for a fictional character, you're strengthening your capacity to care about real people. Every time you feel dread in a horror game, you're rehearsing threat assessment. Every time you're moved by a story, you're becoming more human. This is why we've been telling tragic stories for thousands of years. It's not a bug in our psychology, it's a feature. We're not broken for loving fictional suffering. We're sophisticated. So why do we love fictional suffering? Aristotle was right. It purifies us, teaches us, prepares us for reality. Hume was right. There's genuine pleasure in the exercise of sympathy, in the artistry of pain transformed. And neuroscience confirms our brains are built to seek out these experiences, to learn from safe danger, to train our empathy. But I think there's one more thing worth saying. In a world that often feels numb, where we're bombarded with real suffering until we're desensitized, fictional tragedy gives us permission to feel. It creates a space where emotion is the point, where caring isn't weakness, where tears are the appropriate response. When you weep for a character who never existed, you're not being foolish, you're being human. You're practicing the most important skill we have, the ability to recognize suffering and respond to it. Maybe that's the deepest answer. We love fictional suffering because it reminds us we can still feel. It proves that beneath the calluses and defenses, we're still capable of caring. And in a world that needs more empathy, not less, that's not just entertainment, it's hope. I'm Adrian Vale. Thank you for thinking with me.